Welcome back to the channel, and before I get started, let's go through what's in my pockets. First, we got the brand new Kershaw Bel Air. I reviewed this one yesterday, and I gotta say, man, this thing really shocked me. It's in CMB Magna Cut steel, aluminum scales. It's got the Duralock, or their version of an axis lock. Super smooth on bearings, comfortable, great EDC size. And if you want to see how it did in my testing, go check that out. Excellent blade shape that's going to be versatile for just about anything because it's got that low tip drop point. The belly's very gradual. You have that full flat grind, and it's made in the USA. Yeah, if you didn't get a chance to check this review out, go check it out, see how it performed, and I'll link it down in the description as well. And in my left pocket, I got a brand new Tiguass, and this might be my favorite Tiguass budget knife to date. This is the new Columba. I got the one with black micarta scales, and it's interesting that the micarta is very grippy. It's different feeling. I don't know what it is. It feels good though. You have a flipper that's well placed above that pivot, so you can have a lot of momentum once you break that detent. And you have blade window on both sides. This thing rockets out, and then check that blade out. Nice drop point, almost spear point. Blade of 14C28 in steel, full flat grind. This one has a black wash. You can also get it with a satin finish. And this is a nice size. Let me show you. This is pivot to pivot with the Ontario Rat 1. So it's almost the same length as Rat 1. And yeah, it's very lightweight. They have inset stainless steel liners, good access to that lock bar. The action, ridiculous. Deep carry reversible pocket clip. Yeah, this one's going to be a good one. I'll link this one down below as well if this is something you're interested in. But now let's get to the review. Today we're taking a look at the CMB Sasori. This is designed by Tiguass. I'm probably butchering his name, but he's designed quite a few knives that I've seen from other companies. Caval is one of them, and all his stuff is very tactical in nature. But this one is more of an EDC size. It's definitely different than anything I've reviewed, and that's why I agreed to check this one out. This is the first CMB made knife that was sent to me for review. I bought some of their knives. I first discovered them with their phenomenal budget knife, the CMB Predator. This is another outstanding knife. Very comfortable ergos on it. It's got a crossbar lock, very smooth and snappy. And then this one also has a versatile drop point 14C29 blade. This one interests y'all. Also try to link this one as well. But the Sasori is more of like a medium-sized knife at 7.28 inches long with a 3.14 inch M390 blade. Extremely bulky tip there. Definitely going to be excellent at piercing. And then you have this very interesting upswept compound ground recurve blade. I'm kind of curious on how this one will perform. You have this flat grind up here in the front for a little bit extra thickness. And then you have this deep hollow grind recurve right here that comes down nice and thin. So the belly portion is going to be good for cutting on a flat surface. You can do rocking cuts, you can do pull through cuts. And then if you needed to cut something with some finesse, you could easily do that. And then this smaller portion right here, even though it's small, it's got that gentle recurve. You should be able to trap materials half decent, especially stuff like cardboard, maybe even rope. Like I said a second ago, I'm just very interested to see how it's going to handle the EDC tasks that I do in my testing. Let's find out. I have to say I was a little skeptical on how well this thing was going to work on day-to-day EDC tasks. And I don't really think it's even really designed for that, but so far so good. Like I said earlier, it is trapping material fairly nicely. It's drawing the material in that little recurve. I was trying to see if I want to try to cut in that little section or where the transition point is. And I found that the majority of the cuts were easier in that little recurve spot as long as that's where you land, even though it is a very small section. Now we're testing the ergos, and I wanted to see I was going to use the recurve spot to see how that edge was, and as you can see, it's nice and sharp. A recurve works really well for doing feather sticks. And then in a little while, I'll kind of transition toward that tip area just to see how sharp it is. And I was pretty impressed. I will say the handle's very skinny, so you're not going to want to do this for a long period of time. My wrists, my forearms were pretty cramped up after I finished this, just because that knife wanted to kind of spin in the hand a little bit. So I was really bearing down on that handle. But as you can see, you could do this kind of stuff in a pinch, and right there showing how sharp that front portion is. So very nice, and definitely could get the job done if you had to. And as you see, I'm using that tip, but you can see I'm almost at a 90-degree angle. You're going to want to use mainly that belly if you're going to be doing drag cuts like that. But cutting on a flat surface, it's going to really shine. It has that nice belly up front, and it's performing fairly well. It's not as thin toward that tip compared to that hollow grind, but it's definitely thin enough to get this job done as long as you keep a nice sharp edge on it. And the 10-ounce denim wasn't really any problem for it. And once again, that belly made it really easy to do this type of stuff. I'm interested to see how much bite the knife has. Now we move to the 1/2-inch thistle rope so we can tell how much bite it has. Now, it's not, it doesn't have a lot of toothiness to that edge, but it's sharp enough. I'm sure if I were to sharpen it up after this, I would probably get a lot better performance. But as it sits, it's doing well. I will say that the way that belly's set up like that, it makes this pretty easy to just do those push down cuts. Basically a push cut, but I'm doing a push and a rock motion. And I am finding it a little bit difficult to hold the knife in that pinch grip, because just like earlier when I was doing the wood, you got to really grip it tight. You don't want that to spin in your hand, and it would have probably made it a little bit easier if it was even sharper. Now, like I said, it is phone book paper sharp. It might even be hair shaving sharp, but it's lacking that grit and aggression that I love whenever I'm doing these type of tests. I think we get through 75 cuts before I run out of rope, and it probably could have done a little bit more. My hands had a lot of blisters from testing a bunch of other knives before this one. Now let's take a look at the deployment action of this knife. It is a flipper only deployment. You do have some jimping up there that does grip the finger. The flipper tab is placed almost above that pivot, so you can have a lot of downward momentum once you break that detent, and the detent is dialed in very nicely. This thing rockets out. No problem whatsoever. It is riding on ceramic ball bearings with the ceramic detent ball. Very, very snappy. Now, it's not a fall shut knife. I don't really care about that anyway, but it's mainly because this is a very narrow blade. It doesn't have a lot of mass coming down, but I'm sure if I took it apart and cleaned it, lubed it myself, then it may be closer to a fall shut. But like I said, I don't really care about that. I prefer the snappier action and that it has. The flipper tab is comfortable for me. It's pretty non-obtrusive there. You can see they also skeletonized it a little bit on both sides. I'm sure to try to balance the knife out a little bit better. But good job with the flipping action. Now let's take a look at the handle area. You got black coated titanium scales that are nice and contoured. They got bevels going around the edges, so there's no sharp spots where you don't want them to be. You also have a little bit of extra milling right here just to give it a little bit of flair. You have a countersunk pivot with a black pivot collar around it. You have Torx T8 for the pivot. Unfortunately, they went with Torx T6 for the body screws. They are flush with the scales. You have a geared titanium backspacer that is pretty much flush with the scales also. You have a milled titanium pocket clip that has been blind screwed, meaning it's screwed in from the inside, so you don't have an extra screw right there. And it's tip up right hand carry only. And there's Tiguass's, or whatever you say, its logo teamed up with CMB's logo right there. It's not a deep carry per se, but it does sit fairly deep in the pocket. It sits right there. It's all you have showing when the knife's in the pocket. It goes in and out of the pocket nicely. You got right amount of tension to it. I haven't had any issues with any bunching in the lock relief right there because the retention spot's sitting to the left of that. So your mileage may vary, but for me, I had no issues with it going in and out of the pocket. Besides the contouring to relieve weight and the little portion on the flipper tab, they also have a ton of internal milling to bring down the weight as much as possible, bringing the weight to a pretty impressive 2.56 ounces. That's outstanding. The lockup on my knife sitting at around, I'd say 30% or so, and no play whatsoever. This thing's got very, very tight lockup, no play up or down, left or right. And the access to the lock bar is really good because the show side scale comes down a little bit lower. You got this nice chamfer there. I can easily get my thumb in there, no problem whatsoever. You do also have the hardened stainless steel lock insert that is removable, and it also doubles as you over travel so you don't overspring your lock. Quick size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1 and 2, the QSP Penguin, and the Kaiser Drop Bear. It's pretty similar in length to the Benchmade Bug Out and the Spyderco Para 3. And lastly, there it is next to the CMB Predator. And now for my nitpicks and complaints. I'm not the biggest fan of this type of blade. It's just not as versatile as I like to carry. I think it would have been a little bit better if they would have brought this recurve to where this compound ground portion right here, hollow ground portion, stopped. Instead of putting this little piece right here, I think that would have given you a little bit more of that recurve, and then you got a good bit of belly up here, just so you have almost the same amount on both sides. But I know it was a design choice, and you know, that's just my thoughts and opinions. You may love the way it's set up, and it would have been nice to have T8 hardware throughout. Other than that, it's a very well built knife. I think it's a cool knife, maybe not one that I would have bought myself, just because, you know, like I said, I like the more, I'm more on the practical user side, not really a self-defense type of carry. For me, I don't really do that. I don't carry knives for self-defense. You know, it would have to be a last resort. And other than that, like I said, I'm interested to check out some more of their premium knives. I like the interesting stuff, so I like the knife. But like I said, it might not have been one that I would have purchased myself, just because, you know, this is a premium knife. It comes with a premium price tag. I think these go for, I think, $221. And it's a very well made knife. Like I said, very, very nicely done. I don't know who the OEM for these are, or if CMB makes their own stuff. I don't know that, but it is a very well made knife. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.